Wesley, this is like a part-timer day. I mean, this is not a twofer or a threefer. This is just a one-fer. Is that a word?
Yeah, it
One-fer?
feels kind of lazy, doesn't it?
It does. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I should take a nap or have a Dr. Pepper or something afterwards.
You and me both, right?
Yeah, well, I might have had a Dr. Pepper last night as I was looking at book covers, which is interesting because that's what we're going to talk about today is all that kind of stuff. So, um, our personal friend, both of us, my editor in chief, we'll call her. Is that a word? Editor in chief? That's what we'll
It
call her.
is now, if it's
It
not.
is now. It is now because I said so. And it's our show. So if I said it, then it is what it is. But yeah, we're going to talk about editing and book writing, and because I'm deep into that, almost ready, and you and I are working on. You're working on a book, and we're working on one together. Man, let's just go talk to Gail.
Yeah, because I got to tell you, I wouldn't know whether to wind my butt or scratch my watch when it comes to this process. But Gail knows it inside and out, and let's just get to her.
Why don't we?
All right.
All right. Okay.
Yep, I could do the same thing.
Okay.
Boo-boo.
There you go. Well, I'd had my socks that you gave me, but they're still in my suitcase in the garage that I haven't brought in the house yet because I wore them yesterday.
I know, but you should be showing them. And
I
I
should
want to
be.
know, I want to know if the socks I got you created any buzz. And I want to know, well, first you have to tell everybody what they said.
Yeah, what they said. What exactly did they say? They said I forget now. I'm gonna have to look. I have to go back and look at LinkedIn, my post, but something about this meeting. I know what it was. This meeting is BS.
Right.
It's a family-friendly channel. So
yeah, right.
But no, I did. I was at a meeting yesterday, and I sat back and put them up. And I said, "Are we about done here?" And they said, "Well, just about." And I pointed down to my socks, and they got a big yuck. So it was well worth it. It was cool because you know me. Hashtag cool socks, Randy.
And I want to tell you, I was telling somebody the story today because I bought you those. Somebody asked me where I got them. And I said, I have had those since November of last year. I went to a book signing at this independent bookstore here in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was looking around because this bookstore has some really cool stuff. And I noticed their sock session. And they have all kinds of socks for editors, for authors, for whoever. And I said, those are the ones. So they've been sitting in my drawer. And I said, those are the ones I'm going to send Randy when we get this close.
Exactly.
This close to,
yes.
Well, not just this close, but when we're finished editing and proofreading the book, and it's now in the designer's hands and the marketing people's hands. So we've had a grand old time for quite some time.
We have, and I'll tell you before we, so tell everybody the name of your company. I don't want to say it because I think it's the coolest name ever, but I'll hold this up again.
Okay, so
there we go.
Yep, I am known as the Savvy Red Pen. I'll tell you the history of this name, but first of all, I want to tell you, yes, it is red. And if you can see on the logo, the red is kind of this little carrot up there because we all know that editors insert comments.
Yes.
And from as long as I can remember, back to a million years ago when we used to get papers back from school, all that red ink, right? And I used to come home from school crying. So, oh my God, I don't know if I'm gonna ever be able to write again. So it has this bad connotation. It's really negative connotation. But these pens, and there's magic in these pens, do not write red. They write black. They write black.
I don't think I've used one. You're right.
Oh,
it
come
does.
on, Randy.
Well, I just put it up for show. I mean, you gave it to me. I might not get.
Right. So take your pen right now and write something on that little Post-it note that I sent you.
All right.
And
you want me to show it to you?
Yeah, everybody can see that it doesn't write red.
Gail is a beast. Come on, easy.
Yep, it writes black.
There it is. There it is.
Black. All right.
I love it. I love it. So
Long
tell us
story.
how did you get into editing?
Well, I'll tell you. You
Okay.
asked, so I'll tell you. A million years ago,
Whew.
when I was a junior in high school, I decided that I wanted to be an English teacher. And that's what I became. So I went to school, got my master's, ended up doing exactly what I wanted to do, which was to teach. And so my first job out of college was teaching in high school, believe it or not, in Ogden, Utah. And being from a little town outside Chicago, that was quite an interesting experience,
I'll
but I
bet.
did. And I felt every day, just like you do, as passionate as you do, and show about everything that you do. I knew I was in the right place, making a difference with these kids who used to hate English and they thought it was fun because I don't do anything unless it's fun. You.
Agreed.
And that grew into a career teaching college. So in Utah, in Illinois, and now in Cleveland, I've been in the classroom teaching high school freshmen how to write research papers and short stories and all that good kind of stuff. Telling stories, period, is about the whole thing. And accidentally, in 1985, serendipitously, we'll leave the long story for another podcast, but I ended up going to work for a publishing company here in Cleveland called Live Publishing Company. And I started out as a road warrior, just like you,
Love it.
selling advertising, relationships all the way. But at the same time, I was working for a publishing company that did magazines, and anywhere I could help with the words, I helped. There I am.
There you are.
There I am. Yeah, so this is my website, and you can read a lot more about my background and everything that I do. So as long as the website is up, we'll put a short hold on that story. You can see I am a writing coach as well as an editor. So I work with people online as well as in person. When they're stuck and they don't know how to get into their books, that's how I help. So that's the teaching part of me that continues. And you'll see where it says student services that I also work with wannabe college students who want to get in and get money. So I work with kids all across the country. As a matter of fact, I had a student in the Philippines as well. So, yep. And here's one of my blogs about the college application process. But there's a lot of information about me on the website. I'd love to have your listeners go on and check it out, see what I'm all about. I have an ebook on self-editing and then tons and tons of testimonials because I've been at this for quite a while.
Yes.
So when I was at the publishing company from 1985 until now, literally this month, I ended up starting in sales, but I had to write a lot of copy. I had to write a lot of words for a lot of our advertisers who didn't know what to say. And so I helped them do that. And while I was at it, I ended up editing a fair number of the stories that we published in the magazine. And it was an arts and culture and lifestyle magazine, like, is there a lifestyle magazine in Naples?
I think there probably is. I'm
Yeah,
sure there
Naples
is.
Life or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on my website, you can see that you can read a lot more about me. I love doing discovery calls. So I'd love to hear from anybody who is thinking about writing a book and doesn't know where to start. So while I was at the publishing company, because it was a custom publishing company, we not only did magazines, we published books. I would say more nonfiction, and that's my area of specialty. I love to read, but I'd rather read my fiction for fun than analyze it. It makes me, it's hard. So I am in the nonfiction space, and it's been that way. I started the Savvy Red Pen in 2015. So this is my 10th anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I'll bring you a cake or something.
Socks are fine.
Well,
Dr. Pepper
can I
with,
recycle socks? I'm cheap.
yeah. Yeah.
I'll wash them
So
first.
I decided, because I went from sales to sales manager to editor to publisher. So that was my route
Hmm.
in the publishing business. But I decided in 2015 I wanted to think about what people call their encore career, because I wanted, and think about 2015, right? We weren't even in COVID yet.
Right.
But I decided I wanted to be able to do something that I could do for as long as my brain was still working and my left hand, my writing hand could still function, and I could do it from anywhere. I've been spinning my wheels thinking about where I wanted to spend winters, because Cleveland's weather really sucks in the winter. So I experimented this year and went to Tucson in the winter. I loved it. I'm going to go back. I edited my guts out in between working out and looking at cacti and having a grand old time. So I'm at it, and I'm going to be at it for a long time. So it's my function in life.
Yep.
What can I tell you?
You can, and so good at it. And we should mention, because as you have got to know me, networking is a big important factor. So we met from a fellow, now a fellow guest of the show, family, a member of the Building Wins Live family. I'll never get his name right, so I'm going to let you say it, Bob, the bow tie Bob, I always call him, but
Pakanowski.
Right? And yep, Bob. Actually, I met him, and he actually spoke at a trade association that I'm on the board of, and I got him in there to speak and got to know him pretty well personally, and talking about wanting to write a book myself, and he's who recommended me to you. So, folks, networking does work, right?
Without question.
Yes.
And Bob and I have known each other quite a long time, and living through his experience of writing a book in many ways was similar to yours, in the sense that he started and stopped. He started and stopped. He started and stopped. And when he finally figured out that it was time, it was all hell broke loose. Let's do this. Let's do this. And so much fun to work with aspiring authors like you guys, men and women, because they're passion projects. And if somebody is really not knee deep into, I don't care how many reasons I have to do this, whether it's to make money, whether it's to take it on the public speaking circuit, whether it's to leave a legacy, you have to have goals.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes people a while to really figure out why the heck they want to devote these years. Because that's what it takes. It takes being all in, and on the days when people think, why the hell am I doing this? This is taking too long, or I don't have time to do this, or what the heck am I going to get out of this? We have to go back to the why. Because on days when people have writer's block, they're looking at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper, and it's like, oh my God, nothing is coming. I'm just staring out the window. There's my window. Or staring at a blank screen. What keeps me going? I tell everybody to go back to their why. And this whole process is like a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. And frankly, and this, it is. It's not for the faint of heart. Unless you're all in. Maybe not every day, but a little piece of every day. Mm-hmm. It's never going to happen.
An interesting thing, Gail, that it's a big learning process for yourself, right? Because I wanted to be an author. I wanted to put out some stuff that I thought would be beneficial to people, because I've had a lot of people help me along in my 1,000 years of doing this crazy gig. And as we talked, I did it to honor my dad, right? Which is a big important part.
Right.
So I think I told you and the Wolf were our marketing and designer and formatters, and they asked the why, and what was my first why? I think I said, at the end of the day, if I print one book and it sits on a coffee table, I'm not going to love it, but I'll be okay, right? Because that was the primary reason for doing it. But the discovery was interesting, because I think I've said this to you and probably to Richard and Victoria, that I found out I'm a sprinter and not a marathoner, and that's where I got in trouble. The next book will be way easier because now I know what to do and what to expect.
Right.
But I've been writing for years articles, 1,500, 2,000 word articles. That's easy for me, but that's a sprint.
Right.
But now you got to do 16 of those and put them in some kind of order that makes some sort of sense. And it's like, and that's where the burnout thing with me, right? And I'm sure you get a lot of your authors is, I really quickly hit, and that's where I'd hit a roadblock where I'd kind of disappear from doing it for a while, is I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted it done.
Right.
And that is the value of having somebody like you on your team. For anybody that's thinking about writing a book, and if you are, you should. I'm just telling you, you should write a book.
I agree.
But the reason to work, one of the biggest reasons is not just the technical parts. That was very important. But keeping me on track, reminding me that what I need to do things, and patient when I got into I don't want to do this mode, and reminding me. I remember many a time you reminded me, no, you're not done. So no, you know, but you never changed my voice. You never changed what I wanted to say or do, but you kept me focused and didn't let me stop, because I was ready about 10 times to just good enough.
Right.
Let's just publish this thing. And then it still may suck, but it would have really sucked.
Believe you me, it does anything but suck, but it took a while.
It took a while, right? But it would have sucked if I would have stopped the
Right.
many a times that I wanted to and said, you know what, just format this thing and stick a cover on it, and I just want to be done. I'd have had a book that was just whatever, right? Now I think we've put something together that
Right.
I think is going to be very valuable, I think.
Well, I've always said, as not just an editor, and by the way, editor-in-chief is definitely a term. As a matter of fact, it's part of my signature because I am the Savvy Red Pen. I mean, I don't have other people work for me per se, but I do have a team.
Mm-hmm. You have peeps.
Yeah, just like we all do, you know. So I think of myself as an ambassador. I think of myself definitely as a cheerleader. I think that's what a writing coach is supposed to be, you know, like any other kind of coach, whether it's a business coach, leadership coach, psychologist, you know, whatever it is. I mean, the idea is you got to listen. I mean, I have to really understand what's in an author's mind and heart and gut. And I know that sounds sort of cheesy, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to get into somebody's head. What are you thinking? I have to get into somebody's heart. You know, what is the soul of the book? I mean, it's what is the passion behind it? What difference is it going to make in a reader's life? That's a major question, especially with nonfiction. Traditional nonfiction, and we call it prescriptive nonfiction, whatever it is, which is what you're doing. You know, you're teaching lessons through storytelling. You are sharing information, you're sharing a process. And at the conclusion of the book, you want to say, okay, so how have I transformed my reader? What difference have I made? I've taken my potential reader from this point to this point. Okay, so we worked together long enough that I can answer that question for everybody. But for you, it was, I'm going to take my reader from understanding how I got started in this business, how I had a choice, but I made the choice to become what I'm now calling myself, a hybrid road warrior. So I started from here. COVID happened. COVID happened to us all. Okay. And some of us thought, oh, shit, pardon my language, but I'm not going to be able to deal with this. Well, either deal with it or you're not going to move forward. You're not going to be successful and come out on the other end a much better fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it happened to me. I absolutely had to embrace it. You know, I was teaching in a classroom, live space. I had to learn all of that stuff. But your passion is to tell people how to adjust and, you know, tell them this is how I did it. Give them some fun examples like your cool socks, you know, tell them fun stories like some of your posts about, do you remember this? Well, I love those posts because I remember typewriters and I remember whatever other contraption, you know, you're putting up there. But it's all about the transformation. So the idea, that's the fun part about me. You know, I get goosebumps over this stuff. You know, in the classroom, I used to call them goosebump teaching moments, you know, because there would be an aha on the part of, in that case, the student, in your case, the author, you know, where you said, you know, I never thought about it that way before. But when I said something to you like, Randy, you told a story about cool socks. It's one of the highlights of the book, right? It's serious and funny. But then I would go through and I would see other opportunities for you to come up with more, not just cool sock stories, but I used to call them cool sock stories. I want another cool sock story here, not literally another pair of socks.
Right.
You know, but tell me, if you're going to tell me, do a backstage or backstage trade show video. I don't want you to tell me that. I want you to show me that. I want you to tell me. So one day I walked into the booth and blah, 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 and we ended up talking about this, 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 and this. It's coming to life. So that's really why I do this. And so when you say to me, yeah, I could have just stopped there. Nah, sorry, buddy. I couldn't say, well, you only give one example here. Sorry, not enough. Sorry, not enough. Why? Because my function is to help you come up with the best book ever so that not only do you sell a bunch of books, but that the readers love them. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh my God, I just read Asphalt and Algorithms. It is the coolest book. This author's name is Randy, and he is the guy. There it is.
Look at that.
I know. So tell them about that.
Well, yeah. So, you know, what's really funny is it's part of the process. We discussed prior to the show whether we should put that up yet or not, right? Because that is 99.8765% probably what it's going to be, right, for the cover.
Yeah. Right.
But there's what I found that's really interesting is the number of tweaks through every process of this thing that I had no idea existed. And that's why, could you write a book without an editor? Yeah, you could, and you can do all that stuff if you want to try. But I'm gonna recommend to anybody that, as I said, write a book, but work with an editor, work with somebody like Gail, because 90% of the things I would not have done if you wouldn't have got me on the right track. And we talked about this. This may change slightly, so do we want to put it up on the screen today? We decided we would, as long as we tell everybody this is probably 99% exact what it's going to be. But you know, and it's funny. We spent time talking about just how many accumulated minutes and hours have we spent just talking about what the cover should look like.
Well, not only that, but we also went through a major discovery, brains-taking, heart-wrenching conversation about the title.
We did, and I'm glad you brought that up, because folks, that's a key to having a good team. So, you know, I'm blessed to have Gail on, you know, and she brought her team, the Wolves, Victoria and Richard, who are handling the marketing for me, a bunch of the plans, what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, the cover design, back cover design, the formatting, all that kind of stuff. And for a long time, and anybody that's listen to me the last year and a half of I've been screwing around to this crazy project. My journey to hybrid was my title. And I remember when I had all three of you on a Zoom, and you said you're probably not going to like this conversation because I think I made it clear there's one thing I'm not talking about, something to that effect. We're not touching my title.
Right.
It's my ugly baby. You all may think it's ugly, but I love it. That's mine. That's what we're doing, right? I was firm.
Yeah, you were.
But you guys presented it like, can you just listen? And I think a smart thing that I did, and I'm going to suggest this to anybody who wants to write a book, is when you have people around you that are good, that know more, because you always don't, the old three, you don't want to be the smartest man in the room or woman in the room. Believe me, in the world of writing, I'm with you three, I'm the dumbest by far in the room. So if I'm going to have you there, I need to listen. That clicked. I said, okay, I still hate you people right now for saying my baby's ugly, but I'm going to listen to you, right? And it didn't take long for me to start going, okay, that makes sense, because there's reasons why that title, and I think the funniest part is I talk about being a hybrid road warrior. I talk about hybrid. Anybody that follows me on a regular basis probably would have knew what I meant.
Right.
But what about all the people that I would like to sell this book to, that I would like them to get something out of this book, that haven't ever followed me before? They're going to go, you mentioned it, or Richard, one of you mentioned it.
I did.
You did. You're talking about a car, a hybrid car.
Exactly.
What does that got to do with anything you're doing?
Right.
And it got me to thinking. So the key there that I'd like people to understand is that's the value, again, of having a team that can tell you the stuff that you don't want to hear, but they're going to tell you anyway.
Right.
And I knew, but you've never been that way. And I knew at the end of the day, and because you've said this a couple spots throughout our conversations, end of the day, it's your book. I mean,
right.
You're not going to stop working with me if I'd have just said, I don't care, I've listened to you, but no. You'd have shook your head and done what I wanted. I know that.
And then I would have said, don't blame me.
When it sucks.
No, when people aren't buying the book because they're not understanding what you mean by my journey to hybrid. And right. When they're looking on Amazon for keywords about best-selling books on sales, or whatever, if you had left it like that, it would have brought up best-selling books on cars.
Mm-hmm.
And wrong way.
Yes, wrong way. Hey, friends, it's Randy here, the owner of Source One Marketing. I bought from Randy.com. And I got to tell you, we are proud to sponsor the Building Wins Live podcast and vlogcast. We have 4+ decades in this beautiful industry of supplying materials, supplying services, supplying marketing assistance, and we just are proud to sponsor Building Wins Live and some great guests that we have every single week, many of them from our beloved industry and many of them from outside the industry that still bring some incredible content. So make sure to check us out at ibuyfromrandy.com and let us know what you think about this show. For now, thanks for checking this out. Let's get back to the show. Well, and the title still tells, probably even better, I will agree now, so don't get a big head, but tells my story that I want to tell in the book better, because it really is from the old world asphalt or tarvy roads, right, into the world of algorithms and the combination of how you use those day in and day out. I mean, today's a typical hybrid day. I've been doing it both, traveling the road.
Me too.
Dialing for dollars, so to speak, on the phone. But,
yep.
So I think it was great. But I think, again, that's the point, is that was just one of the many processes that I would have screwed up. And if I would have self-edited, if you will, it would have been, that's not that funny. That's not that funny. But
yes, it is, because I'm going to share something. It's going to embarrass you, but guess what? You don't.
Embarrassed away. I don't care. I don't get embarrassed.
I remember the day that you sent what you thought was the manuscript, right? Lizzie sent it over. Okay. And a few days later, I'm reading along and I realized that chapters 10 and 13 are exactly the same, because by accident, and because you have written so many articles and done so many podcasts and so forth. And it's the first time it's happened, but I understand why it happened. And I had to stop you and say, hold the phone. There's a ton of repetition here. I needed to ask you. I wasn't going to rewrite it for you. I wanted it in your voice. I wanted you to see the repetition. I wanted you to go back and say, and you did it, and you did it quickly, and because you didn't want the reader. Can you imagine if it had gone to press then? It would be like the reader would have said, wait a second, what is going on here?
Yeah. Didn't he just say this like 12 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it is part of the process. And when people ask me, why should I work with you? Or what makes you different? I am proud to say, because I've been at this for quite a long time, I'm parroting back what my clients say so that my ego doesn't go, I mean, I know I'm good at what I do, but more than that, I love what I do. And why do I do it? Because I believe in the author's message. I believe that the author has something to offer, even if it's just that one book on a coffee table that's going to change that person's life. And so I'm in awe. I seriously am in awe of writers, especially those who are writing books for the first time, especially those who take the risk of going the self-publishing route because you just don't know. But I know what it takes to write a book. I know what it takes to keep at it. I know what it takes to be confident enough, but also be humble enough to listen. And I think people will say that I'm a good listener. I have respect, you said it, for your voice. Okay. If I need to change the words, it still has to be in your voice. It still has to be your opinion. It still has to be your story.
Right.
I'm not doing you any favors, and this comes from my teaching background. Okay. This comes from working with the receiver of my critique. And the people who are in my writing group will also know that when I critique, because I want to model for them how to critique others, you have to do it with kindness. You have to do it with respect. And that's my MO, Yeah, I can tell you where the commas and the periods and the ellipsis go, Mr. Randy Ellipsis. Private joke between us, but
yes. But I learned something on that again the other day. That it's dot space. See, I always just put them together.
It's easier. Yeah,
it is
easier. But yeah, I do the line editing stuff, which is all the technical stuff, but everything that comes before that, technically, which is called developmental editing, which is making sure that everything flows. That's what I was doing when I noticed that chapters 10 and 13 were really similar. And it happened in another chapter as well. But it's like, is everything going in the right order? Does it make sense? So I guess that's part of the uniqueness, of it. And I'm all in, especially when it comes to celebrating what you do very much is called building the wins. Because in my world, it's building wins along the way.
Right.
It's not just tra-la-la, we'll celebrate when the book comes out. No, it's celebrating the first rough draft. And for those of you who might be listening, one of my favorite all-time essays about writing is called Shitty First Drafts. And it's by this famous author whose name is Anne Lamott. My students used to freak out because they thought I was swearing. And I said, don't go home and tell your parents I was swearing in the classroom. I'm just quoting. But her idea is that even the best authors, the Faulkners and the Hemingways and, Stephen King writes shitty first drafts. They're also shitty, beautiful first drafts. And that's a major part of celebrating an author's moment of triumph. I've worked with people who have been at the writing process for 20 years. Not just 2 years, a year, but 20 years. It's all a matter of the passion and what it takes to get it done. And I call part of my process thinking big, where the BIG stands for butt in gear. Well, we can find a pair of socks, I'm sure, that says
Yes.
something like that.
We probably could.
Yeah,
I need those.
yeah. But
If
it's
anybody wants to send me a pair, I'll wear them online
right.
on air.
It's so much fun when he sees you do that. But that's the process is evolving. You know, there are going to be good days, there are going to be bad days, there are going to be some major aha moments. You know, there's also this phenomena. Some of you may have heard this. It's the phrase killing your darlings, which is when you have to take these precious words that you put down on paper and they don't make it into your final manuscript because they were too long, you know, or they didn't get the job done. And you have to go, cut that, cut that, cut that. But we have to do it. It's all part of the process. I think before I forget, because I think one of the other things that makes it unique about working with me, and you mentioned it, is team. Okay. I'm just me. I'm the savvy red pen. Okay. But not all editors work the same way. Not all editors have the same areas of expertise. One of my favorite parts is what happens when I'm finished, quote unquote, with the editing process. Do I abandon my authors? No, unless they want me to. Okay. But you're a really good example of what I love to do, which is network and connect writers with the people they will need to get that book in hand. I mean, I don't have a printing press in my basement. Come on.
Right.
You know? Contrary to popular opinion. So, nor am I a designer. I'm not a formatter. I don't want to learn it. Some editors know how to do this, but I don't. I've never wanted to. I wanted to stay in my lane.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what I love to do is connect an author with the best match of a design and a marketing team. And sometimes they come together, sometimes they're separate, because it calls for different areas of expertise depending on the book, depending on the author's personality, you know, and so forth. I just wanted to mention that because I almost forgot.
No, and it's a great point because, and it's a great service you bring in, because two things to that. When you said you had somebody, that was a relief because I don't know what I want for a designer. I don't even know where to find one. I mean, I guess I could Google it or chat GTP it and find somebody, I suppose. But to have somebody that is recommended because they have your confidence, you've worked on them before, and you stayed with me and you still are. I mean,
that's the other thing that's unique because I do stay with everybody until it is the book in hand.
Mm-hmm. And I love that because without that, I would be stuck explaining to a Victoria or a Richard in our case, not knowing nothing because I'm a newbie to this, right? But you're able to step in my stead, if you will, and explain, well, no, this is what Randy wants. This is what he's looking for because you know what I want by now, right? And
Right.
and you know how to speak the language and you have a vested interest in it being good because your name's in the book as the editor, right? I mean, you have a vested interest in
that
this.
so much.
Yeah. Well,
So much.
Yeah. Well, you are, and so
Well,
you don't want people to read this book and go, oh, the savvy red pen lady sure must suck at being an editor because this book really sucked, right? I mean, you don't want that. So there's a vested interest there, which I think is huge. So it's been a great, the experience has been great, and it's one I mentioned to somebody the other day. I said I probably will always be writing a book from this point forward. I went from just wanting to have a book, just to have a book, and to use it because there are more talks and speeches and other things that I want to do, and Wes and I are working on some things we want to do together. But I didn't enjoy all the processes of it, but actually I hated some of them.
Yeah, and you should have hated some of them, but
the result is, and it's like anything. It's like I've talked to people before, and they said, I don't know if I could ever do a podcast. Well, Wes knows the story, but I kept begging off on the first one we did 4 years ago because I was scared and I didn't want to do it.
I,
Right?
I've not created one.
Yeah.
More
But
power to you and Wes.
here's the deal. It's like you had mentioned about the shitty first draft. Here's the bottom line truth. The first podcast you do is going to suck. You're not going to be very good. Right? If you look back, you're just not going to be very good. But you're going to like go 50% better from 1 to 2. And then you get better every day, right?
Right.
Because but the problem is with anything, you got to jump on and go live that first time. You got to write that first word, then the first paragraph, then the first chapter, and then get your editor saying this is really stupid. You got to start over because I don't even no idea what you're doing. Then you want to throw it away, right? But you got to go through all that stuff, right. And it gets easier and easier and easier to where at the end when you're telling me, I don't like this here yet. What's this? This is. I didn't get mad. I was never mad, but I didn't get frustrated anymore. Just a little bit of okay, but but it's like with anything. The more you put into it yourself,
sure,
you're only going to get back out of it. So if your goal is to just and I'm so thankful that you reined me in at a time that I wanted to just call this a day and just publish this thing because. I think we're 75% better than it would have been if I'd have stopped where I wanted to stop a couple times. Yeah. So the other thing is it's not working with an editor. I found is not just give this to you and you just give it back to me perfect. You kept giving me homework because part of what I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am, is you're not going to write this for me. You're going to tell me where it's messed up. And maybe some ideas on what you ought to do to fix it, but this makes no sense. Go back and fix it because otherwise it takes it out of my voice, right?
Right.
And you've got to know me pretty well, so you could probably write a paragraph or two in my voice and get it pretty close because you've read the book probably more times than I have.
I'm sure I have.
Yes, you have. but with that said, the last instruction, it was interesting for people that want to understand what this takes. I remember you told me, and you go, Randy, you're not going to like this, but I've read this thing for the last time. I'm done reading this thing now. You've got to read it word for word, out loud, and pay attention for anything and everything, because this is it. Katie barred the door, forever hold your peace, like at the old weddings, because this, when we're done, right? And you remember, I tried my best not to go, oh, not again. No, because you're the editor. Just edit the dumb thing, and I don't want to talk about it anymore, right? But I did my job.
Yes, you did. Because you did it really well, and you caught a couple misspellings. And I want to mention, by the way, editors need editors.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no such thing, really. There is no such thing as perfect. And I want to say this because it's not a statistic that gets me or any other editor off the hook, but because there is no such thing as perfect, across the industry standard of editing, we guarantee 97% accuracy. Now, I'm a perfectionist, so it's hard for me to deal with 97%, but it does happen. And so it's crucial. But there was some other piece of that experience that you and I talked about. You said, well, I didn't love it, but yes, I read it out loud. And I said, do you know why I ask authors to do that? It's important to read your writing out loud because you'll read something out loud and you'll say, blah, 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 and it was like, I didn't mean the, but it happens. You're making a correction and you go back and fix it, but something else, somehow it ended up staying in there, right? So you not only catch mistakes, but it led to the conversation that you and I had about an audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not, if you were to do that, if you would do it yourself or if you would hire somebody to do it, that's such an individual choice. But believe me, you're going to be on the road book signings and you're going to be asked to speak, and you're going to say, or somebody's going to say, so Randy, read for us one of your favorite quotes from the book, or one of your favorite passages from the book. You don't want to stand up there and go, na 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 na. I mean, that's not you anyway. But I have heard authors read their books out loud, and they needed vocal training. Seriously, because they were quiet, they were soft spoken, whatever it was. And unless you practice that for people, and it doesn't matter whether you're speaking in person or on Zoom, on a podcast, or whatever it is. And authors these days need to stand out alive in front of an audience. So that reading out loud is also a dress rehearsal, for marketing.
Love it. Well, this for anybody that cares, I will read it myself when we get to that. I've decided, just because.
Well, I think you should. And I also want to say, and you and I think talked about this. Okay. As you're reading it out loud, and I guess this would be who's ever doing the engineering part, the producing part of your audiobook, your audio broadcast. Do you have to read it word for word? Or if you decide you want to slip in an extra in, or you decide you want to slip in, and I really mean it, folks, that's up to you. But
wow, you just gave me some freedom and flexibility. That's dangerous.
Well, again, I'm giving it to you, but you have to check with your podcast, with your audio book engineer.